Hi, today we're going to be looking at painting one of these panelled doors. They're fitted in most modern houses nowadays, and if they're painted correctly they can look pretty good. What I've already done before I start painting the door is I've taken the handle off and I've put the handle and screws safely in this paint kettle so I don't lose them. So I've done that first of all, and also I've given it a light rub down with some of this aluminium oxide paper. I don't know if you can see, it's 240 grade, because what I don't want to do is scratch the door up too much. It's a very fine abrasive, just to key up the paint which is on there to give better adhesion for the paint I'm going to be putting on top of it. So once I rubbed it down, I then dusted it off with my dusting brush, and also while I was dusting it down I made sure I dusted off the top of the door, because if you don't, when you're painting that top rail you can often pick up dust and smudge it all over the front of the door there. So this door now is already for painting. I've also put some paper on the floor, which is far better than using dust sheets, because you can tuck it underneath the door like this. So it's all ready to go. So the first part of the door I'm going to be painting is actually going to be this edge down through here. The reason for that is if I do it last, after I've done the face of the door, when you paint this, the paint flicks round onto the front edge of that door, you end up with a fat edge running down there. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to paint this edge. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got some undercoat, and it's a very pale green, so hopefully you'll be able to see as I'm applying the paint. And I'm using a 1.5 inch brush to paint the door. So about 1 centimetre of paint on the brush. Apply it down through this edge here. When you get to the top, always brush upwards and don't brush down, because you'll get a pool of paint that runs over there. You're going to get runs hanging down the door then. Brush out evenly like that. Lay it off upwards. Same again for the next bit. I need a little bit of paint, about 1 centimetre. Down like that. When you come to the catch bit there, you can see it, get the brush and just creep it forward so it just comes to the edge of it, and then pull it up. And these side bits, if you don't want to take this off, just tilt the brush sideways, just dab it down like that, and just come down lightly with the tip of the brush like that. Flick it back that way. That's that bit done. Lovely. Now just down through here, creep up like that with the brush, so to give a little wiggle just to get into there, and pull it down. And just the last piece now down here. Put that up like that. Right, so that's the edge done. So before I do anything else, I don't know if you can see this. You see how the paint crept round there? So that's why we always do this edge first. And now what I'm going to have to do is just get a piece of kitchen towel cloth and just wipe that off down through here there. Because if you don't, you're going to have that big ridge down through the edge of your door, which you don't want. So just smear that off with a piece of kitchen towel, bit of rag, all the way down through. Just like that. Okay, so now I'm ready to paint the big face of the door. Right, so before I start painting the door, what I've already done, if you can look down there, so I've used a dusting brush and a scraper just so I can wedge the door when I push it in like that before I start painting. If you've got a proper wedge at home, all the better, but us decorators can compromise by using that. Okay. So when it comes to painting the face of the door, I've numbered this up to show you the order in which decorators paint these doors to minimise the chance of getting runs and shut marks and things on the door. So the first things you need to paint is the number 1s, which are the 4, 5, 6 panels. Then the second part you paint is these, what are called muntins, these middle bits. Who makes up these names? So these number 2s are called the muntins. You do that second. Third components is the rails going horizontally like that. Then last of all, you do the long stiles down each side of the door. So I'm going to get new paint and get started. Okay, so now I'm going to get cracking and paint the panels. As you can see, it's the number 1, so the 4 panels I'm going to do first. So I'll do this one first, so it's easier for you to see where I'm going with the paint. So, about 1 centimetre of paint on the brush when we start, and tilt the brush back like this a bit, because I don't want to get paint on there. And go up and down like this. Spread the paint out evenly. Tilt the brush at an angle like this when you come up and down, so I don't want to get too much paint on this part, on that muntin there. Give a little wiggle to get in that corner and pull it down. A little wiggle at the bottom and pull it up. I can tilt it this way and do that flat part down through there. So along the top you only want a tiny little smidgen and pigeon amount of paint on your brush, so you don't get any runs coming down over. Go through there, tilt it like we did earlier, little wiggle, and tilt it, give a little wiggle, get in the corner, and pull it back like that. And use the brush flat ways like that to do in there. Now down through here, and down like that. Tilt the brush that way. Give it a little wiggle to get in there. A little wiggle to get down in there. And pull it up. Tiny bit of paint. Now go that way. Move the brush flat ways. Even that off, like that. Same on the bottom, just a tiny little smidgen pigeon amount of paint. Go across here. Little wiggle. And just go around, just make sure that all the paint's looking nice and even on these corners. Yeah, that's fine. Now we'll do the front part of the door. So, about half a centimetre of paint like that on the brush, and start about there when you put your paint on. Put it on at a slight angle, and start to brush it out. And what you never do is you never come down like that, because you'll hit the top of there, and the paint will pool across it and run down over. And you're going to end up with runs coming down that top of that panel. So what you need to do is then pull it up like this, come down and up. So you're not going to do that, just pulling the paint up like that. So then you're not going to get any runs on that bit. Same thing, go paint there, slight angle, distribute the paint a bit. And just go downwards on that. So when you're laying off the paint now, when you come down like that, it leaves a little mark. So when you come down, always make sure you go up slightly higher each time, so you don't leave that little mark where you start with the brush. Like that. Okay. If you do overrun the edge of this a bit, 2 things you can do. You can get the brush and just feather it out like that, so you don't get a ridge. Or if there's quite a bit on there, then you just need to get your bit of kitchen towel out and give it a wipe. Get the worst off afterwards. Okay, so that's that panel done. So I'm going to crack on now and do the other ones, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so that's all those 6 panels done. Now I can move on to the number 2s, which are called the muntins. At this point, when you do the remainder of the door, we need to go at a steady old speed, because if not, we might get some marks where we've overlapped the paint on the miters here and there, okay? So it has to be put on a reasonable speed. So these number 2s are next. I'll take these off. Okay. So when you paint these, go down through the centre like that, and then tilt the brush a bit to push the paint to the edges like that, using the brush sideways, and lay it off up and down like that. So as you can see, I've gone slightly beyond the end of this, like that. And do the same on the second one. Go down through the middle, tilt the brush sideways like this, then tilt it that way, because that forces the paint out to the edges. If you have it just flat, you often don't get the paint right to the edge of the style. Lay it off gently with the tips of the brush, like that. Maybe the centre, do the old tilt, like that. Then I can lay it off the full length of that muntin like that now. Okay, just this one down here now. Same principle, through the centre, tilt it like that. So I'm tilting it like that to push the paint out to the edges. Lay it off up and down, like that. So once again, you can see I've gone slightly beyond where that muntin finishes, the same as on these. Okay, so that's the number 2's done. So number 3's are going to be these 4 horizontal rails going through here. So if I start with the top one, paint like that. Tilt it down a bit. Some of you who aren't quite as tall as me, you might be better off stood on a little hop up or something at this stage, so you can reach like that better. Tilt the brush down like that. Now when you go along this join here, you want a nice straight line. So tilt the brush so you can see where it's going, and just pull it along and make a nice straight line across where that mitre is through there. And once again, I've gone slightly beyond the end point of each one of these parts of the rails. That's the top part done. Same on this one. So pull the brush at an angle like that so you can see where you're going through there to make a nice straight line. Same underneath. So tilt the brush, get a lovely straight line through there. Right, so I'll just do the other 2 rails and I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, so all that's left to do now is these 2 number 4s, these long stiles down on each side of the door. So let's take the sticker off. Okay, so same principle, about a centimetre of paint, going through the centre of there. And the top of the door, once again, don't come down with the brush because you'll get a pool of paint and then it'll run down over there when you're not looking. You have some big runs flying down there. So always just go upwards there. So start a centimetre down and then go up to the top like that. On these edges here, once again, we want a nice straight line. So when you come down, tilt the brush so you can see where you're going, make a nice straight line down through there like that. So you get a nice mitre on the edges of each of these stiles there. Right. Another important point here is make sure that you've dusted out any dust in there before you go near it. If not, it just spreads all over the place and you get a big grey tinge to your paint. So I'm going to tilt the brush, get a nice line down through there. Okay. And for the bottom bit down there, I hold the brush slightly differently than I normally would, so I can tilt it upwards like this. And a nice straight edge up through there. Put it up like that. There we go. So that's looking good. So I've just got this last style to do down through here. I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, so that's the door all finished now. All looking good. What I didn't show you though was before I painted this style down through here, I put a bit of masking tape on both of the hinges, because nothing worse than painting the door and getting horrible smudgy paint down all over your hinges. So looks nice and clean now. So hopefully you found this video helpful and useful. I'm also going to be doing a video on how to paint door frames as well. So why not subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos.